So today I've been looking at this book, Critical Pedagogy, which I still can't say, and it's by Joan, and it was written in 2011, so it's a fairly recent edition. I picked the book up because I couldn't find the book that I wanted, so I kind of have these random moments of picking books up. But it was just quite simple and plain to read, so while I was waiting for a bus, like you do as well, I was looking at her introduction, and although I should probably read a bit more of the book before I kind of get too much of a sense of her, she says that she is a professor in bilingual teaching. So she has got a professorship and she's looked at lots of things in her career, and by the time she comes to do her fourth Masters, she concentrated her efforts on critical pedagogy, and she looked at describing what it actually is as opposed to pedagogy, which, as we both know, is the science and art of teaching. But androgy is the science and art of teaching adults, and she kind of misses that out of her introduction a little bit, so I was a bit disappointed with that, but it encouraged me to read on. So, what am I going to reflect on, or what am I reflecting on, if I can't read my own writing, is the fact that quite early on in the book, there's a quote on page 5 saying, and I'll quote, is, "I, like you, am constantly searching for the very elusive answers. Of course, what I usually discover is just questions." I think that probably describes critical pedagogy in the sense that she approaches it as though pedagogy is not defined and easily understood in like a neat little package. It's really complex and complicated, and there's lots to it. So she goes on to talk about how she comes to this conclusion about writing about critical pedagogy, and I really liked her style of writing. And another quote that I came across was that on page 12 she said, "Critical pedagogy is learning, relearning and unlearning," which I could probably relate to process of reflection. So that you're taking new ideas on board, you're trying to improve your practice, but you're trying to also understand what you've learned about during the day or the week or the incident or whatever you're going on about, and you're trying to make that incident more important for you, to relearn it, and then you're also trying to unlearn parts of it, maybe the bits that didn't go so right or so well as you thought they would, and maybe that's what led you up to write the critical incident in the first place. So, description of the event is, of course, reading the book and writing lots and lots of notes, like I do. But what was quite evident was she was really well read. And later on she talks about critical pedagogy as being a reading challenge. So on page 15 she quotes Freire, and she says that reading the world always precedes reading the word, and reading the word implies continually reading the world. So from what I can make out, it's critical pedagogy is about really delving into the teaching methods and the way in which you teach your learners. It's also really important to consider how the research and reading of others has informed your practice, and how you to read and interpret the world around you, and how you present ideas to your learners and how they present ideas back to you, and then you go away and read some more. So it was really interesting, considering it was such an old quote from 1987. The bit that I've read today, at least, is she kind of finishes by saying critical pedagogy is a challenge to our assumptions and one in which we often resist. It kind of got me to question and interpret that as a way of understanding why sometimes that we just are like the status quo. You know, you get into teaching practices and you deliver similar methods, similar lesson plans, similar courses, and you stay within your comfort zone, and we're all a bit resistant to kind of looking beyond that. But when we do, it's quite enlightening. So she's definitely motivated me to read some more. But also in this, on page 9, she talks about her kind of cycle of reflection, and she says it needs to start by what am I reflecting on. You need to describe that to yourself. You need to work out what it is that you're actually talking about. You need to interpret either what you've read or what you're talking about and make it make sense to you. And then you use the action plan. So my action plan, as a result of reading 20 pages of this author's work, is to read some more, because I get quite confused about what pedagogy is, and especially what critical pedagogy is, and how I can relate it to my practice. And we had that lecture from a teacher from Huddersfield, and I found him quite motivating actually. But he talked about in our specialist conference that we should be considering how we can relate our subject specialist knowledge to our subject specialist pedagogy. So it's really kind of making me think about why is it that the teaching methods and models and the science of how I teach works for the area that I teach in, and for my learners, and for my environment, and for my location and my age and all that kind of thing. So it was really interesting reading. So my action plan is to carry on reading and reflect some more. Thanks.